So this is a weird moment in time that's happened to me. Oh, thank you, Dennis, aka Def Noodles. I'll just add you to the list with the growing number of people who have me on a block list for some reason by association to other people they don't like online. Because we all know what makes a healthy society is to cut out people that we cannot stand the opinions of. Ironically, I kind of called it in my last video, completely separate from the rest of the commentary community. I had no idea that somebody had done a video on him or was going to do videos on him or any of that. And to be honest, it's not really my place. It's not the kind of content I enjoy making on the channel. Now, I will say personally, I think my critiques were pretty reasonable, right? That he needed a bit of a little bit more writing research, so that way he doesn't just fudge up on basic facts of a story, you know, which, unless he's making a point by deliberately misinterpreting facts, he's just making a mistake, and I think he's just making a mistake. But you know, basically my message was maybe get an extra writer, maybe just somebody to fact check your shit. That's about it. But yeah, Dennis made a video responding to the hate, in particular the video that I will link below, of the man whose career he just created. But really it's like a general overall message he's sending out to the haters, which is, I mean, like every other commentator in the genre who gives opinions on people. I won't just, you know, insult Dennis though. You know, I'm breaking character a bit here. And I will give him a compliment, right? I'll give him a lot of compliments in this video actually, but you know, Def Noodles as a YouTube channel has really high production value for a YouTube commentator. I really think that, right? Commentary as a genre is noted by its fast visual edits and its fast visual language. And Dennis, you know, he capitalizes on this. He capitalizes on this very well. And I will say, in a genre filled with people who think they're funny, Dennis's jokes land more often than they don't. And even then, he moves fast enough where if a joke isn't really that funny, it's not really gonna be that much of a detriment because the joke per, like, second ratio is high enough that it's okay. Overall, this creates content that is, you know, enjoyable to watch. It's fast-paced enough that you don't get bored with it, and it really does what it needs to do. You know, that's all you really need. You don't need to reinvent the wheel as a commentary channel, you know? You just need to sit there and be funny about, I don't know, the time Trisha Paytas shoved eggs up her ass or something. Now, I'll also say that it's clear Dennis has been slaving away at his craft of comedy and acting and all that for a long time. You know, a long time in the amount of time he's spent on Earth, which isn't a lot. Now, whether or not you find him as a comedy man to be funny is really not the point here. The point is that he's been working long enough that he ends up on sets with people that people know the name of, at least.
Everybody knows he's not funny. The only way that I would actually believe that Def Noodles has actually performed in a comedy club where people actually paid to get in is if I actually got to see the lineup. What? Oh, that's the lineup. Huh, from February 11th, 2020, I see Jeremy Piven, that guy from Entourage, was on a show with Def Noodles, and Jimmy Dory right before him. Folks, that doesn't mean anything. Just because Def Noodles has performed in comedy clubs doesn't mean he actually knows anything about comedy.
Now, I can say personally, as somebody who makes film outside of YouTube, that I understand and get the work and the thankless hours and the project you make that doesn't make the income back. You know, I get that. I've been there. It's a long, hard road, and I understand the work that goes to be put into it. And I am not saying that you didn't put in the work. You definitely did. I get it. And I respect the craft. I respect the work. I understand how it is from an actor's perspective. All those hours and emotional taxing. It's taxing. It really is. Because it's a crazy job, and it's not just fit for a normal person. Stand-up even more so than acting. Like, you go out there in front of people on an open mic and you don't know what's funny and what's not, well, you're gonna get made fun of by a drunk dude with his bros, and it's gonna suck. So you've been there, right? You worked in NYC comedy clubs. You know what that heckling is like. You should be able to handle it, but we'll get into that. Now, this is what we call a compliment sandwich because I chastise him for promoting Def Noodles as more than what it was.
Also, he's not the Onion. The news he posts is very real, and everybody knows that unless you're fabricating a whole blown-out story, it's completely impossible to be satirical when you're covering real news.
If you read the papers, you know that we Americans live in an unprecedented era of communication technology. From tablets to smartphones to futuristic glasses that instantly send the message, I'm a douche.
Yeah, folks, but here's the deal. Stephen Colbert is playing a character. There's zero evidence that Def Noodles is actually playing a character.
I want to use this channel more.
Don't get me wrong, he's worked hard, but he ain't no Colbert. He ain't no filling up stadiums type of resounding success right here, okay? That's not what's happening. It's kind of like he's prematurely calling himself a success when he hasn't even made it yet. Also, Stephen Colbert is playing a character, so if Def Noodles is a character and Def Noodles is taking heat, you as an actor should be able to separate yourself from Def Noodles and be able to realize that it's the character that's getting the shit, because my personality isn't that character. There's a level of separation there, and if you're an actor or have done acting, or you've played a villain in like a play or something, you totally get the understanding of why people are gonna hate you. You know, that's part of what makes you a good actor, if you're able to make people hate you. Like, make it clear that Def Noodles is a character, which you try to do sometimes, but then you blend it, and then it just makes it more like you're just personally offended. But you know, if you want to be a caricature of the commentary community, there's enough room in this space for that to happen. You know, I don't think a commentary channel needs to reinvent the wheel with their content, because there's not much you can do, but you know, commentary as a genre could allow for a caricature to exist, a caricature that mocks the nature of people who talk about drama online. On YouTube though, I think YouTubers have a stage persona that's a part of them. I've talked about it myself, you know, it's how me and many others have spoken about what the job is like, because you don't feel like you when you watch you on the internet. And what's crazy is that you say the same thing I've been saying, so I know it's not just a me thing.
Use this channel more and get more of my personality out there, so you can know more of who I am, because I do play a character.
On YouTube, I personally complain about perceived authenticity a lot. You know, YouTubers are the epitome of that. You know, we show ourselves to our viewers, right, in an attempt to get us to like them. And the reason that YouTubers watch YouTube is for you. They want the personality, the real person, right? And they need to perceive the person on camera as a real person. Otherwise, they're gonna click away, because they don't want to watch someone that's fake. They want the idea of thinking this person is real, this is what they're like. You know, and I think while YouTubers can be a character, and I think FPS Diesel sometimes leans into being a more machismo-driven, you know, hey, Brooklyn, hey, I'm gonna fuck you in the butt kind of character, you know, kind of deal right there. But there's a part of it that's me, and there's a part of it that's a stage persona. You know, but there's a part of it that is me, and we all put ourselves into our work, into our art, and that's what makes us proud of it. You know, so when you hit that for somebody who makes something or puts something out on the internet, you know, that could hit them as you're attacking them as a person, because they put their blood, sweat, tears, and time into this, you know? They feel personally offended. I know I can get that way too. I'm sure most people can, you know? Because you put in all these hours of work to have somebody say, well, it's shit. And it sucks, you know? But I don't really respond to it. Instead, I try to be a little bit more self-aware and try to think, well, maybe I didn't describe this concept well enough, or I could do better. And I just basically put my axe to the grindstone and try and get better at writing, editing, presenting, doing the things that'll help me do what I do better, so that way I can get to a point where people aren't gonna mock me. So Dennis says it's a character, but part of it's him. It is, that's just how it is. I can't read his mind, of course. I'm just going off of personal experience here and what I've heard from other YouTubers, and I really don't think that Def Noodles is the exception to the rule here. My problem with Def Noodles content, because that is the problem in my personal opinion, right, is that if it's satire news, characters like Colbert still made sure to not poorly present the facts. Same thing for Jon Stewart's. You know, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, they make jokes that enhance the news and make it more palatable. There's a level of juxtaposition that comes with a character like Colbert. He presents us the news, but he also shows us the ludicrous lengths and leaps in logic that, you know, conservative news anchors will go to in order to uphold the values of their executives. Colbert is not just a satire of news. That's not what makes a Colbert Report so good. Colbert is a satire of the business of news and how ridiculous news has become as a result. That is what the satire is about. It's not, you know, a guy who's not really acting as himself, acting as somebody else making jokes. That's not the butt of the joke. The butt of the joke is that there are people that fucking lie and tell the news. Or make logical leaps in order to fit a story to their personal narrative. You know, when you poorly present the facts of a story between, like, you know, Pokimane and Fedmeister, that was a mistake. It wasn't a deliberate omission of facts to make a statement about the nature of online news. You know, when you tweeted out, you know, old James Charles tweets for Trisha Paytas to retweet them, you were just giving her ammo. You weren't making a statement about canceling. That wasn't what was happening. Or if it was bad. That's just it. You just didn't tell a good joke, you know? It happens. Some of them aren't gonna be fucking zingers. I'll also personally say this. I honestly think you just shouldn't put satire on Twitter, because have you seen Twitter? I could literally lie and say the most ludicrous bananas crap and some person would believe me. It's not worth it. You know, people want to think they're Dave Chappelle or Sacha Baron Cohen. No, you're not. You're not. You're just not.
News stories posted every day, typically 8 to 10.
Now, folks, everybody knows that in a world with over 7 billion people, in a country like the United States with over 300 million people, you rarely have 8 to 10 things happen that you can actually cover on a news page, especially in a 24-hour span. That's why when you buy a newspaper like the New York Times, they're just literally one page with 2 stories, one in the front, one in the back, because there isn't much happening in the world, folks. That's why most cable news networks spend 23.5 hours of the day showing a blank screen, because they don't have enough news to fill a 24-hour news cycle. So clearly, Def Noodles is reaching when he says he's gonna post 8 to 10 stories in a day, because everybody knows that there's more action in the middle of the desert than on social media. And at the end of the day, folks, that's why his news segment is called Irrelevant News. Not because he's reporting on the most relevant people on social media and the title itself is supposed to be an ironic joke about it. Nah, folks, it's none of that. He's just a toxic guy looking for drama.
Anyway, Dennis spends a large majority of this video basically breaking down this tweet that you're seeing him go over now, as if this tweet is like a way for him to absolve himself of sins. Okay, Dennis, I don't know if you're familiar with modern journalism, right? I've only had a couple of brushings with it, but you know, my media training had to be pretty broad. Modern journalism, these entry-level pen pushers, they gotta fill up an infinite amount of space every day. So 8 to 10 garbage useless stories, I wouldn't call them news. Some people would call them news. Some people who want to say that their job is actually worth something would call it news. I wouldn't call it news. But, you know, 8 to 10 stories a day, there's enough out there. I think there is. You know, there's enough out there in the entertainment sphere, right? Because it's not like we're in small town Ohio covering like the homicide beat. That's not what's happening. Dude, seriously, I look at this and your body language and everything is telling me, oh, he's kind of personally offended. You know, don't let this is not worth the frustration. It really isn't. Plus, if you need to explain your jokes, maybe the factor that is consistent here is you and not everyone else. Dennis has also gotten garbage for saying his content's repetitive. I really don't care about that. Personally, I feel like the internet's filled with lots of content, and I think I use content in a bit of a derogatory way. It's more like a neutral way of saying it's nonsense stuff to fill up time on the internet, you know? I think personally, outside of commentary, most people don't care if the content's repetitive because they just want to fill their eye holes with content. I personally just don't like poorly told stories. You can have an angle. All news has an angle. Everybody has something they want to push. Keemstar has an angle. He has a huge angle. But you know, you can't be screwing up on simple facts of a story, or, you know, just, it's weird for you to be messaging the D'Amelio family about their kids vaping. Like, what? Dude, you don't work for the New York Times. Come on, man. They don't owe you an answer, and you're not somebody with credentials to be asking the question anyway. I think there are people who are qualified, but it's not you. This isn't even to say everything he does is bad. He even brings up the way that he improved.
Dude,
even the all caps tweet, like, it's all a character. It's all a character.
I see he workshopped with John Swan, who he then blocked because of John's association with people that Dennis feels are fascists. What does that word even mean anymore, if this is what we're gonna apply it to? Honestly, this whole video about Def Noodles complaining about his personal canceling is cringe. I really feel like that's a reductive way to put it, but I think it's cringe. Oh boy, now we're at the drama. The tea sis, the inner commentary tea. I don't talk about inner commentary tea because personally, nobody cares. I will walk away from this computer one day and never return, and nobody will care. But he did block most all of the commentary community. And his reasoning was that everyone was either one, fascist, or flirted with fascism, which again, these words have become so reductive, I don't think they mean anything anymore. It's just like news speak. Everyone's either fascist, racist, or sexist, and I'll link to a video that just goes over all the tweets because it's long. Now, I think we all know that I, FPS Diesel, am a freedom founding father lover as fuck, right? But I also think that I'm not racist and try to speak out against oppressive institutions pretty regularly, but you know, hey, society, man, we live in one, right? Like the use of the pejoratives that Dennis chose to use are so awful that they make conversations about these complex topics and isms more difficult to have. You know, how can you have a constructive conversation or have a minority be taken seriously when you got this fucking idiot talking about how people criticizing him online are equivalent to goose-stepping, Reich-hailing Nazis, basically. That's crazy. I'll say no one attacked his content the character. I didn't see that happening until after he flipped out and showed that his content of character was something to be desired. He pulled the race card for being Brazilian, and I don't care if he's Brazilian. This was never about his skin color, ever. I mean, he looks brown, but I couldn't I couldn't pin where he's from, seriously. And yeah, I know he pulls up the saturation and it makes him look like he has jaundice. I know. There's just something about our monkey brains that like sharp, contrasty, saturated images. I don't know why. I see it all the time on my photography Instagram, where the more contrasty, sharp colors there are, more likes I get, all right? So I just assume it's the same logic that's being applied to the video here. You know, it's crazy. My girlfriend gets called white, you know, but she's more Hispanic than I am in a way, you know. The Latino community is proud of where they're from, and I could talk at length about the personal shit and baggage that comes with being Latino, but come on, dude, what the fuck is this about? I'll say though, that generally people in the Latino community, you know, they identify a lot more with their nationality. It's why when people ask, I say I'm Puerto Rican, I don't say I'm Caribbean, you know, because I identify more with being that nation and that culture and idea rather than just the general area and color of my skin kind of deal. And I know there's a lot of similarities with our Portuguese speaking friends, but I won't pretend like I know the intricacies of race relations inside a country where my biggest exposure to it has been The City of God. Great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And this is really where I decided I'm gonna make a video on Def Noodles, because his statements about his minority status are disingenuous. And really, that's just super awful because his entire origin story is a fucking lie. So if you're native Brazilian or you come from Brazil and you can speak on behalf of what it's like to be a poor Brazilian, which I assume is a lot of Brazilians because the wealth disparity is crazy. But Dennis, according to Dennis, his origin story is that he came here, you know, basically with the clothes on his back at age 12, right? To make it big, basically. You know, classic American dream story. Who cannot root for this guy? Except he's the son of a Warner Brothers executive. My God, does society work in mysterious ways? Oh, let's see. He went to a fancy international school in the wealthy part of Brazil, and it sounds and looks more like a college campus. Seriously, I went on this school's website. It's called Graded, which is an interesting name for a school. And it looks like a college campus. It seriously does. Like, it's on his IMDb page. You can go. It's public information. But I wanted to check how expensive this school was, right? Because he went there, and then he went to boarding school in Florida. Also expensive as fuck, but I'm just gonna stick with the Brazil here because I just think it's absolutely bananas that like a K through 12 school would cost this much money. So K3 to grade 5 has a yearly tuition of Brazilian real, which is worth this much money. And let's see how much that is in American money. That's a lot of money. If you're curious, that's more than my tuition at a highly accredited New York-based university, which blows my mind. You wanna have your mind blown even more about his education? Grade 6 to 12. Well, that's a lot more. Now, I'm assuming these prices have gone up since he's been in school, so maybe it's a bit lower. But the point of the matter here is that his schooling was privileged. And I don't use that word often. I really don't, but he is. Okay, this school looks like it's a Google campus. Listen, I know a lot of people here went to public school, which, you know, is paid for by taxes. And, you know, I went to Catholic private school for 1st through 8th grade. The education was really awful and it caused a lot of financial instability for my family. Like, I'm not the poorest guy on earth. Like, I make like McDonald's wages doing this job. You know, trust me, I've been here when my family has arguments over who's gonna pay the electricity bill because nobody has money to pay the electricity and there's a chance it could go out. You know, I've had those moments of like, my family's not well off, and I make jokes about that. I'm not the poorest guy on earth, I'm not. You know, I'm blessed to have this roof over my head, and fuck, to be born in America? Come on, man, come on. Have you seen places like the Democratic Republic of Congo? Like, come on, dude. Like, I could be worse off. And I'm really appreciative of where I am and what my parents have done for me. I know it could be worse. Hell, it could be worse even in my own state. In New York, I've worked with people that are much more impoverished than I am. And, you know, I know that it could be much worse, you know? But what's frustrating about this is that fucking Def Noodles makes it out like he started from the bottom. No, man, you didn't start from the bottom. You had a huge leg up compared to everybody else. Are you kidding me? Seriously. Okay, you know I talked about the Brazilian wealth disparity. Here's the wealth disparity. Look at those numbers. How about gun violence? You wanna look at gun violence? People think it's bad in America? Oh, how many people live without basic essentials that you had a glut of when you lived in Brazil? You wanna talk about that? You talk about starting from the bottom? Fuck off. Guys, his boarding school in Florida, fancier than any school I've ever been in. Seriously. When I lived at college, right? The toilets didn't work sometimes, and I was paying money to go there. You're acting like you struggled, but you had the money and time and people in your life that you could dedicate time to work on comedy and acting and all of these things that I know from personal experience, you put in hours of work and don't make money back, okay? You know how much money you lose being a solo videographer because you have to do free work? Because people won't hire you if you don't have work. So then you have to work for free, even though you're self-employed. Are you kidding me? And to add insult to injury, you didn't just have wealthy family. You had wealthy family with show business experience. You know how many people get a free pass into entertainment? Literally just being related to somebody who is an excruciatingly famous person or a successful executive will get you in a room. That's just how it works in entertainment. Now, personal story time, right? Okay, now personal story time, right? You know, I'll let you in a little bit more, Dennis, all right? To see how the other half lives when their family income, you know, is a bit lower than yours. You know, I really wanted to get into NYU, you know, because I'm in New York and I can't fly across the country to go to film school. And I really liked Scorsese. You know, Taxi Driver was the film that made me realize I wanna make movies. And you wanna know something? They didn't take me. They didn't take me because I didn't have any serious film or documentaries. And they said the channel doesn't count, which sucks. Could reapply at some point, but considering I just wanna leave college now, not gonna happen, you know? And you know who did go to NYU, right? Dylan Sprouse and Christian Coppola. Yeah, he's related to the guy who made the fucking Godfather. You know, the Sprouse twins, they had family in show business. I think it was their grandmother who got them into acting. But Coppola, you're related to the guy who made the Godfather. Of course NYU would take you. Of course you come from a wealthy family. You know how much money the Godfather has made. You get family in show business, you just immediately get a leg up because of association, okay? Like, Christian Coppola's just made like art indie movies, but he can just keep doing that because he's related to the guy who made the Godfather. Literally, you could be a talentless hack. If you're related to a famous person, you will become famous. We see it all the time. We complain about it. People complain about it. The Kardashians are a huge example of that. Seriously, not anyone can move to New York and dedicate their full time to entertainment because you start out, you don't make any money. You don't make any money doing stand-up, doing theater, writing plays, writing movies. You just don't. Either that or I'm doing something wrong. Seriously, this is public information, guys. You can just read his IMDb. Like, I just asked John Swan, I'm like, did you seriously find, boom, there it was. Like, don't get me wrong, I will say I personally know like a dude from like the inner city who was poor, and was able to make it in NYU, and props to him because he worked his ass off to get that, you know, but that's not your story, Dennis. That's not your fucking story at all. Okay, you're a liar, all right? I don't like that. Like, it's very clear you had your family grooming you for success, and they just completely supported your idea to go into show business, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can be proud of where you are and respectful. You know, just because you're from money doesn't mean you have to be an ass, you know, but understand where you're from and be able to be respectful enough to take it. Like, you're clearly talented, you know, part of that's you, you know? No amount of being groomed by your family or going to theater shit is gonna make you as good as you can make yourself. But you gotta understand the role that your background had in that, all right? Because there are people, and I know a lot of people who are creative and beautiful artists and talented actors who struggle because they don't got an in like you, okay? There's nothing wrong with that, but you gotta understand that when you say stuff like this, it makes minorities mad, it makes poor people mad, and it just makes you look like an asshole. I feel like I'm going on a bit of a rant, but because I work in entertainment, I just wanted to give my personal take, and I don't know if there's any other commentators that have personal experience working in film or television or any of that, but if you do, I'd love to hear your take on a guy like this, because he just kind of comes off as one of those like, oh, well, I have everything kind of deals, you know? And then he acts like he struggled. Man, come on. Like, that's a fucking Karen move. It just is. I feel like I'm getting heated about this. Whatever. Fuck you, Dennis.
Difference instead of being the people incarcerated in prisons, I never got caught for dealing a hole in a stolen pistol. So this one goes out to Warren, my granny Justice and Crystal. Hold up, if you ain't adept, careful with your step. Get your soul in line, chasing after checks. If you ain't inclined to say what's on your mind, please don't throw your stones at me for speaking what's on mine. Man, I still don't feel that comfy in my own skin. It's hard to find your self-worth as a broken kid. These frames never held images of my own kin. That's why rap sheet the only place we fit it in. Yeah, you can go to court.